going to pick your brain for a minute. We got somebody else lecturing, and I feel comfortable talking about the deadlift, but not when you're in the room, because you've dedicated quite a bit more time to deadlifting than I have. And for all practical purposes, obviously deadlifting is a sport with a straight bar in the realm of powerlifting, and there are some things there that obviously could be done or not done that will have to do more with the sport than for sports performance, fitness, or anything else. But we find the deadlift to be a fundamental movement almost across the lifespan, because it's more of a natural lifting pattern than say even the squat. The criteria, I think, to have safe deadlifting, if you're using the movement screen, is you should at least have 2s on the active straight leg raise, and you should really consider at least a 2 on the push-up first if you want to have some fundamental stability, because at least body weight control before you go outside of your body for a ballast. But if you would walk us through some of key points in instruction, because I think one of the issues we come into is a lot of people are squatting their deadlift, and if a deadlift is a squat, then we can delete one of them. So I think the deadlift offers something completely unique, but it must be done right, and it can't be done like a squat. So take us away.
Essentially, what I'm looking for, deadlift versus squat, for example. In my bizarre little mind, the deadlift is where the hips go back. That's the dominant movement. In a squat, the hips go down.
Show us that right now so we got a visual. Squat that thing from a low position.
So if I squat, we can tell that my dominant movement was down with my hips.
Right.
Okay? And so if I try to squat this way, that's kind of what it's going to look like. So I would travel down like this, and there are people out there who think this is deadlift.
Right, but yet if you put that into a position, show us what a front squat looks like with a kettlebell. So now the kettlebell's racked in a one-arm position. All right, there's your squat. Okay.
There's my squat. If I'm going to deadlift this weight, I'm going to stand over top of it, and the dominant movement of my hips is going to be backwards, so that I end up in this position. Then I'm going to simply come to the top, push my hips back, and set the weight down. Now the amazing, and we're using kettlebells, big shocker for me, but what a great way to get my center of mass over this center of mass. And so I create a very safe lifting platform and a great way to learn deadlifting, because I can get my 2 center of masses very close together.
Okay.
Most people will have trouble with a barbell, and we'll get into the setup stuff here in a second, but the center of mass of the barbell ends up being extended beyond their center of mass. And now I've got a problem.
Right.
Because how do I fix the difference between these 2 center of masses?
Okay.
The kettlebell allows me to get more center. So, but you could tell, squatting, hips went down, deadlift, hips went back. Now we see that same movement if I go to single leg deadlift. My hips went back. Versus, say, an airborne lunge, a version of a single leg squat. My hip went down.
Right.
So that's, in my world, that's where I go.
And I think another way for people to do this, people who may have a different focal point, is the vertical tibia isn't a goal, but when your knee comes way in front of your foot, I'm thinking squat, because you're going to use a major amount of your thigh. Whereas if your tibia stays more vertical within the realm of your foot, it's not really coming forward, then by default, if you're going down, your hips got to be going back. So whether you're keying on the center of mass of his hips going back or down, deadlift or squat, or his tibia coming forward or staying vertical, you've got 2 wonderful cues for deadlifting. Now, the problem that we also see is when people immediately get excited about the deadlift and are trying to instruct a client, most clients round their back. So what are some of the options of getting in position? Because I know just putting the kettlebell back far in your stance is going to fix a lot of things, but there's still people who are going to mess with that, and people are going to forget. We have appropriate range of motion qualifiers before that's even on the table. So if you've got somebody who can't cleanly touch their toes, 2s on leg raise, you're going to be fighting coaching the deadlift for quite some time, because they're running into mobility issues. It's not even a strength problem where their issues are in the deadlift. But let's coach somebody. How do we coach the round back person? How do we coach the person who has sloppy shoulders. You know, round back and I think disengaged shoulders are two of the biggest problems, other than maybe just not controlling your neck or keeping a good position. So help us coach both those athletes, clients, young, old, with the deadlift.
First thing we're going to do is we're going to bring the weight up to the range of motion the person can control.
So what you're saying is if I deadlift and I consistently round my back, instead of just saying neutral spine, first thing we're going to do is, all right, so show me that.
So if I'm the athlete that can't control my spine,
Right.
and I start to set up for this deadlift, I'm good, and everything starts to fall apart. In order to get that deep to the bell, I can either try to shove the square peg through the round hole, or I can go find a round peg.
Because that's where
Go
most
to the
people
round
just
hole.
start overcoaching.
Right.
They're telling you they would prefer to give up quality to get quantity, and we're not even going to make that a dilemma. We're going to say, you know what, you could probably easily get to that kettlebell, because that kettlebell is a standard height, and we're different sizes. So it's more about pulling a heavy object with your hips than it is where you pull that object from. So I know a lot of people, when they're modifying this, they go lightweight as opposed to altered range of motion. If you got to adjust something, keep it heavy and make the weight come to the person, make the exercise fit them.
What we talk a lot about within FMS is successful but challenged.
Yes.
I need you in the range of motion where you display success, but I need to challenge you so that you have to earn your strength, earn your movement, and that's what we're going to do. Standard Olympic barbell and 45-pound plates will place the bar 9 inches off the ground. Kettlebell handle might be slightly above that, but it's in a general range. If we're working with somebody who needs the reduced range, just set it on a box. Stable box.
Or 2 layers, or 3 layers. It's nothing standard, adjust it to them.
Now we're going to stand over top of the bell. A lot of people, when they deadlift, they want to place the bell out in front of them where they can see it. This leads to this position. Now, look at the distance between where this is and where my center of mass is. And what's the fulcrum? It's my lower back.
Yeah.
So I have no choice from this point but to try to pull this weight with my lower back. Deadlifting hurts my back. As Dan John has quipped many times, I'm going to paraphrase, deadlifting doesn't hurt your back. The way you deadlift hurts your back. If I try to pull a weight like this, and this has now become my fulcrum, I've got problems. So, first and most immediate quick fix, get them over top of the weight. The only way I can get my hands to this handle is to sit back. Now notice that my arms are against my body. If I stand here and do this, my arms form a line down my body, and if Gray tries to tickle me, like my older brother used to do, then I'm going to pinch my arms down on my armpits to prevent the tickle. So now that I've got this connection, tying the lats to the thoracolumbar fascia, which become my glutes, which sync everything up very nicely, I'm here,
And that doesn't change, by the way. So giving up this isn't an option at the bottom. It does require him to do way more with his hips, and most people go, oh my gosh, I'm really using my hips. That's because we allowed no movement at the shoulder.
and that's the point. Boom, connection, sit back into the hips and find the weight. Notice that my neck is neutral, which in this position is fairly upright. I sniff some air in so that I get a little intra-abdominal pressure. I come to the top. Top is straight line. Ear, shoulder, hip, knee, ankle. Not this and not this. Boom, finish it. Sniff in. Keep the arms against the body. Take the weight back down. Let go. And stand up.
One coaching cue is most people, the first time they do this, never set the kettlebell down in the same place they got it from. So always set it back farther than you think you need to, and it'll be right where you got it from. A good coaching cue is also use a small piece of tape or lay a coin down right there just to give them how much they've got to return to the same position they started from.
Arms down the body, lats attached, lats connected. That's going to prevent a lot of this. If skilled martial artists and skilled movers know that if I'm connected and I go to throw a punch or throw a kick, this isn't going to be a really great punch.
Right.
Because it came, that's the haymaker that you see in the bar about 3 a.m. when somebody's gotten mad. somebody's in tight, that's going to be a better punch. So I don't want to have to fake my connection to the weight. I want to be connected to the weight, and that's through my entire body. So arms down the body, get those lats. That's going to fix a lot of the shoulder, upper back issues, but it also forces you back into your hips.
Okay.
So that lat connection actually helps sync everything up and make it a much different move. Now where we can go with that, if we're getting our double leg deadlift dialed in, our next logical step is going to be the suitcase deadlift. And the suitcase deadlift can come from the same height. Now all I'm going to do is the weight's going to be to my side. I'm going to sit back into my hips. Should look shockingly similar to what I did a second ago. Now as I pick the weight up, everything stays the same even though I'm loaded on one side. Now I sit my hips back, set the weight down. That contralateral or ipsilateral load, perspective is everything, that one-sided load is doing incredible things inside my spine, core, broad strokes, big quotation marks. But this, now, I pull 15 reps on this side. What's my next step? Go to the other side. I can't maintain good form beyond 5 reps. I've just found a big asymmetry in how I stabilize one side of my body versus the other. So during the suitcase deadlift, I don't want to see this. I don't want to see this. I want to see square, top, down, and everything stays square.
We've got a good perspective from the side now. I want Brett to take 2 kettlebells because the purpose in this is once you learn deadlifting technique, kettlebells go pretty heavy. And so you can get some pretty respectable deadlifts using 2 large kettlebells. And we've got 2 options. We can put the kettlebells within the stance or outside the stance. So show us those options, because if I've got 2 kettlebells and I'm doing a double lift from within my stance, at any time I can take one arm out and go back to a single arm deadlift or a single arm suitcase deadlift. I want you to see somebody who has really good technique demonstrate. Let's do 3 reps of each from the front and side, so they got a good profile shot and a front shot of what you're doing.
Okay. Hopefully everybody's picking up on the fact that I've used my same deadlift form to move all of these things. So even when I'm going to move a bell from one position A to position B, I don't get sloppy. What's the point in learning how to deadlift if you don't use it to actually move stuff? And that's where people get in trouble. Well, I finished this great set of squats and I went to set the weight down and I hurt my back. Oh yeah. You got lazy, you figured the lift was over, and you did something wrong. Learn how to deadlift so you can move things appropriately, then always use it. So, classically this will be called a Sumo-Style Deadlift. Hands are inside of legs. Legs are going to be wider. Notice that those bells are almost showing up on my back side of my legs here. Arms are down the body.
Real quick, show us that suitcase and just facing, and you're going to see that the way he uses his hips does not change even though his foot position changes. He can follow the same rules.
So now I've got, my hands are going to be outside my legs, conventional style. Suitcase?
Yes.
Okay.
Perfect.
Let me do, why are you making me do so many reps?
Because I don't feel like it.
I'm going to go ahead and show conventional from the front, then we'll go sideways with the suitcase.
Okay.
And conventional. So, set your stance. Now my arms are more down my body here versus here. Sit back into the hips.
One thing I noticed maybe on this one, he got a little bit deeper than the sumo style, because with your feet together, you're a little bit taller. So,
you have to
yep.
sit back more. Suitcase.
All right.
I'll just do this side.
Yep. Now, here's what I want you to know. Obviously, Brett and I want you to take at least what you've seen here, and 150 repetitions later, after practicing some of these things, rewatch the video. You'll pick up a few more tips that you may have overlooked the first time. Don't just look at this stuff, talk about this stuff, and teach this stuff. Do this stuff. You've got to. We basically learn most of what we learn by our own mistakes and learning curves here. If you want more information about deadlifting, I think it's very important. We did a kettlebell DVD together called Dynamic, and the whole purpose of that deadlift is to make your foundation for, say, a kettlebell swing, a kettlebell snatch, good. It is a fundamental primary lift. Or if you only use the deadlift as a strengthening platform for other levels of fitness and never plan on swinging a kettlebell, I think what you saw is a very user-friendly way to get big strength. A lot of athletes who aren't going to compete with a straight bar sometimes never touch a straight bar, but it doesn't mean they can't be deadlifting. And secondly, if you've got some high school athletes that are looking at cleans or hang cleans or something like that, and they don't get in that deadlift position, that's a big problem. As a matter of fact, I have a lot of people bend over, engage, crush the grip, show me a perfect start position, and I say, let go of the kettlebell and stand up. And then I'll say, get in position again, show me that, and let go and stand up. And I'll make them do this 20 times. They are smoked, and those weights never left the ground. That's how important the setup is, and your alignment and your postural muscles and all your stabilizers are getting the workout in the setup. Your prime movers are getting the workout in the pull. Most people are failing in their deadlifts because of their setup, not because of their inability to pull. Go to Dynami and watch him go even more in depth on that.
A little more perspective things, because we do get afraid of the straight bar, but you can PR without maxing. Everybody sees a max attempt in a squat, in a deadlift, in a bench press, and they think, well, that's the way it's supposed to look like. That's doing whatever you needed to do to get the weight up. That's called maxing out. But I can PR and maintain perfect form. There's a different perception there. Sometimes more is just more.
Okay.
So we can deadlift, work our variations, remember bringing that weight up to the appropriate level. That works for conventional, it works for sumo, it works for the suitcase deadlift.
I got basketball players that will never pull a kettlebell off the ground, and I'm fine with it because they're not deadlifters, they're basketball players. So.
And at 7 foot tall, the ground's just really far away. So.
All right, buddy. Thank you. Check us out again.
If you would like more in-depth instruction on the deadlift, take a look at Kettlebells from the Center Dynami. For more information on exercises involving a kettlebell, check out Kettlebells from the Ground Up and the more advanced Kettlebells from the Ground Up 2, all available for purchase on functionalmovement.com. If you have topics you'd like to see us address in future episodes, please email these ideas to info@functionalmovement.com.